All right. Well, we are excited to be here today live from Andretti Autosport headquarters with Blair Perschbacher, who's the lead engineer on the number 29T connectivity Honda. Blair, we can't wait to pick your brain today. I know a lot of people are really excited. Yeah. So I think first, if you don't mind, if you could just talk a little bit about how the team feels coming out of qualifying this weekend.
I think we feel pretty happy. We didn't do quite as well as we'd hoped. They threw a few real changes at us at the last minute, but I think overall we got solidly in the show. We have a good race car, and the weekend went a little bit worse than expected, but there were a lot of changes, and I think we adapted well and did pretty good.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? I know, being here at qualifying, we had rain delays, and then we had some issues with the aero kits. You touched on it. Can you talk a little bit about what the team had to do to get things turned around? Yeah,
after Ed Carpenter crashed, they decided to change the rules on us a little bit, and it's kind of a last-minute thing. We've been preparing for a week to qualify at one level of downforce and engine power, and then all of a sudden they threw out all new rules, and so it was a bit of a panic for a couple hours. But we have a pretty large engineering group, so we all just got together, sorted it out, and went from there.
Yeah, and I saw in practice that Samona had some faster times too. I'm sure that there's a lot you learned from the practice as well as qualifying for this weekend.
Yeah, no, we practice all week, and that leads up to qualifying, and we're working on the race setup. But so we practice at that level of downforce and engine power. But when you get to qualifying mode, it was completely different. So we sorted it out and did pretty well.
So I know a lot of people have been talking out there in social and the internet about the incident last week with the fire. Can you tell us a little bit about your insights from what happened?
Yeah, we just had a small little part malfunction. Things happen. It was the first time we'd filled the car up to do a long run, a full tank run, and see how the car was in race trim. We just had a little part failure, ended up putting fuel on the car, catching it on fire, and unfortunately, but sometimes things like that happen.
So I know we were all pretty amazed to see that car get rebuilt in 36 hours, and some of us saw on the Andretti TV site the time-lapse video of that coming together. Can you talk a little bit about what the team did to get that turned around so quickly?
Yeah, pretty much. Being a five-car team, we have a lot of guys, so we got the car back after it came back from being on fire. We assessed the damage. We brought the car back to the shop because at the garages down at Indy, we don't have all the same equipment we have there. Each of the other 4 teams sent a guy back to help build the car. So, everybody collaborated as a team to get everything back together.
So it sounds like it was a great team effort then.
Yes, and that's a good thing about having 5 cars. You have a lot of guys, and we think of it as one big team. So there are 5 cars, but we all work together to make sure that every car is prepared as well as possible.
So I know we have RTE Connectivity Racing website, which has a couple videos, which sorry, even you, talking about things like the car and the driver and those connections. For those who haven't watched those yet, can you talk a little bit about sensors and the role they play and data as well?
Yeah, I think especially when you have lots of practice time at Indy, you can go through stuff methodically. So we use all the sensors on the car, ride height sensors, push rod load sensors, and we go through it after every run and make sure all the data says what we expect the car to say and what Simone is saying about the car. We look at it, make sure all the ride heights are right. The center of pressure, which is the aero balance of the car, is correct. So we just do all that, and all the sensors are very important. The engine sensors, making sure everything's fine. Unfortunately, we didn't have a fuel leak sensor, but
maybe it's something we can work on.
Yes.
Not that I'm signing TE up for that right now, but we can talk about it later. So obviously, nothing gets harsher as an environment like fire.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about how you prepare for those harsh environments?
Yeah, the car is, we have our data acquisition guy who builds the car, and funnily enough, the car gets back and all the wires are melted, but all the connectors are still there. There's a section of the back of the car that has a junction of a bunch of the connectors, and you pull the engine cover off and everything's all burnt, and the junction was all there with the connectors plugged in, but all the wires were burnt. So it's not something you plan for, but there is a lot of heat in the engine and in that section of the car, so you have to have robust connectors to last you.
Great. So we did have a question that came in here. Have you been able to catch up on your test program after the fire and rebuild?
Yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment because we lost the rest of that day and the next day. But having a 5-car team, the 4 of the cars were running, so we sort of jumped on to what they've done. So like I stayed at the track, worked with the other engineers while the guys came back and rebuilt the car. So I was, kept up on all the changes we made. And so we were able to sort of jump on with the other guys. It still hurt us because there are things that each driver likes for their own, but we lost a day and a half, and it was really like a half day because we could jump on with the other guys.
So we know that you've got a couple more ovals coming up. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot you're going to take from this last couple of weeks to prepare for those. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think this was the first time we really run the new aero kits on an oval, and so it was a big learning process. Luckily at Indy, you have a lot of practice time. So so now when we go to Texas and Fontana, we can take what we learned here and apply it, because it has changed how the car handles, how the car runs in traffic. So it was good to have all these practice days so we can take all that information and move on to Texas and Fontana.
Great. So, it's a little bit more of a personal question, more so than engineering, but what's your favorite part about this week?
My favorite part is qualifying, because I think that's when you're trying to make the car go as fast as it can go, and the driver is really on edge. So they're really pushing themselves to how much downforce can we take off the car. So and it's really hard to drive. And like Samona said, we did a practice run the morning before we did the qualifying, and there were a few moments where she's really having to drive the car, and it got a bit loose, and she's correcting it, and she's like, well, that was just about perfect, because I was really having to drive it and it was on edge. So qualifying's my favorite day about it. They throw the rule changes in, and you're there we were at the track at 5 a.m. in the morning. I think we left at 8:30 that night. So it's a long day, but it's a lot of fun, because that's when you're trying to make it go as fast as it can go.
We've got another question that came in here. So 223.8 miles per hour on Sunday with minimal practice and testing with the race trim. How much more speed can you get out of that car with a full week of race trim practice?
Well, I think, they give us, I guess that's the same power they knocked us down to. I think yesterday we did a 223.1 in practice trim and a tow. So I think that's probably about now. Now we work just solely on race stuff, and you put a lot more downforce in the car, which is drag, so the car goes slower. I think probably if we had, another day or so, you're probably 225, 226 in that trim. But now we're just focusing on the race. So we're looking more in the 220, 221 range, because we'll have more downforce on the car, because we have to run. Instead of 4 laps, you have to do 30 laps in a tank of fuel.
So you talked a little bit about that conversation with Samona when she comes in off the track. And Samona is one example, but you've worked with plenty of drivers. How do you build that relationship and that rapport to be able to?
I think it's, usually you sign up a driver early in the season, so you have off-season testing, and that's a bit more relaxed. You go and you have all day to practice, so you just kind of learn what the driver likes, and then, they build the trust in you, and you build the trust in them. Luckily with Samona, we've got along really quickly, and so it ends up being good. That it was a short time, but we've done a couple of races before this, and luckily we just clicked pretty quickly.
Great. So just going through, giving it a second to ask some more questions here. There's a lot that happens at the Indy 500. I know you talked about qualifying, but less so from an engineering and a race perspective. What are some of your favorite Indy traditions?
I think that, that it's so long. That's a tradition that, for weeks, it's sort of a endurance race. It's only a 500-mile race, but you've been there for 2 weeks. And that's fun. I think that, I guess the yellow shirts, which are all the security guards, that have to let you in, that every day, you've driven by this guy for 8 days in a row, and he still makes sure you shows the pass, and it's just, they're always, trying to organize and making sure nobody's sneaking in, and it's just a tradition that I like. And then race day morning, where there's so many people, and they have all the pomp and circumstance of race day morning. It's just really shows that it's a really huge event.
We were joking this weekend about those yellow shirts, and I may have nightmares after this of whistles, but it's really quite a show, and it's very organized, and maybe we should do a Google Hangout with them on how they get their whistles in tune and they get ready for it.
Yes, the fans can walk across where they tow the cars out, and so then the yellow shirts have to stop the fans when the cars are coming out, so the cars can go through, and they have whistles. And man, by the end of the month, you're kind of over whistles.
I was driving through Indianapolis that Sunday night, and I had the crossing guards were blowing whistles, and I was like, please make it stop. That's great. Oh, we've got another question that came in. What are the primary factors that led Andretti Autosport to choose the Honda Power over the Chevy?
I think when we decided to choose, Penske was the top Chevy team. Ganassi had just gone away from Honda, so we could be the development team for Honda, and when you can get that kind of support from a manufacturer, it's huge.
Yeah.
You know, if we stayed at Chevy, you're maybe the second or third team on the list, and this is, you know, Honda is behind us and the other Honda teams, but we've done a lot of aero kit testing, and, you know, you're a partner with them, and then when you can be a development team for a big company like that, it's good.
So talk a little bit more about that, because, you know, it's something TE's familiar with, is that development process and building things in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, with the aero kits coming on, you know, you wanted to be a development team, because then all the pieces that were made in the off season, we did probably, you know, 5-6 tests where we went and just tried pieces, different things all the time to just see what was the best, so then we could make sure when they homologated all the parts that were allowed, we got the best stuff. So it was very good to, you know, you're working with a company and all their engineers, and then you're finding what's the best solution.
Great. We had another question come in around the engine. So will you have the latest spec engine for the race? Will you have a fresh engine? Yes.
After it caught on fire, the engine was damaged in the fire, so we got the latest spec engine. So we put our race engine in then. The other guys put their race engine in after qualifying. So we had a little bit of a jump on them. They take about 150, 200 miles to sort of break in, and then you can really start pushing them. So that was good for us. So now we're kind of on maximum power earlier than the other guys, but they'll all be there by race day.
While we wait for some additional questions to come in, what's your favorite race experience so far? Not necessarily this one, but like in the past, your favorite Indy.
Yeah, I think favorite Indy.
Yeah.
I think probably the first one. It was, you know, just you show up and you just don't know what to expect. That this is just this huge event.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we crashed coming to the green flag, so it was over pretty quickly. But and then I think last year as a team, you know, we finished first and third. Ryan won the race. Marco finished third. Yeah. You know, and that was, you know, it's hard to win. You know, you look at this will be my 19th Indy 500, and I've been on a team that's won it once, so it's a hard thing to do, and that's, you know, when the team that you're on can do it, it's pretty amazing.
So what are the learnings you take, you know, from one to another?
That it's just hard and long, and you just have to be prepared when you go in, because it's, like I said, we're there at 5 a.m. and aren't leaving till 8 at night. It tends to wear you down, and so you have to know going in, okay, you know, you get lots of sleep before the week leading up to, because you know that this is going to be the longest 2 weeks. Yeah. You know, it used to be a month long. We call it the year of May, and so it just seems like it just goes on and on.
So favorite track out may not be Indy, but favorite track.
Oh, I would say it's Indy for sure.
Indy for sure.
Yeah, I like, probably my next favorite is Texas. It's another oval. Yeah. It's high banked, and they've had lots of exciting races.
So we got a couple more questions here. So the next one we've got is, how has the new aero kits changed the month of May from data collection and testing? Any chance of breaking records next year at Indy?
I think there is a chance of breaking the records. I think we would have been, you know, if some of the problems that hadn't happened, we would have been closer to breaking the record. I think last year, you know, pole was 2:31. This year, you know, we had a few guys run laps that were close to that. You know, I think we're still learning the aero kits and all this stuff. I think that next year will be even better. Honda and Chevy will make the cars better, and so, you know, it was good to collect a lot of data from this year, because the cars are a lot different with this aero kit than with the old aero kit. So it's something that you have to build on. I don't think we had the balance as good as we'd hoped for most of the week. By qualifying, it was pretty good, but if you can start next year with this balance and work to make it even better, we're going to get farther along in all the data we collect than we look through at the time. But then in the off season, we'll go back and pick through it much finer, and then say, okay, look, oh, here's stuff we can try to do.
So obviously these aero kits seem like a big change. Is this the biggest change you've seen in a while, or have there been bigger ones? Yeah,
I think, you know, in 2012 they came out with this whole new car, and that was a pretty big change. but it was still designed by Dallara, and they used the same principles, and so it was fairly, we took setups from the old car, had to modify them a little bit. With the new aero kit, this seems a lot more different, so we've had to do a lot of different stuff with this.
Scrolling through here real quick, make sure we get all of these. Can you speak to what benefits the Deutsch AS connectors provide over the other Autosport connectors that are available?
That's more of the data acquisition guys question, but I think, that, like I said, after the fire, they were still connected and working, and I think Bill, who's our data guy, will probably even reuse a lot of them. I think that, they're solid connectors that we use on all of them. I know that I've worked on Indy lights, which is the one step lower than that, and when we get wiring looms that didn't have Deutsch connectors on, we cut them off and put the Deutsch connectors on because we knew they were bad. I
mean, that's what we like to hear. That one may have been a trick one thrown in there. So just looking here to see what other questions we've got. I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but how samonas like to work with compared to other drivers, though, it says you don't need to name names. So.
She's amazingly positive. Even when we've had bad days, we had, even after the fire, she comes back, and I'm sure as you guys all see, she knocked down the fireman. We come back, we're joking with her about knocking down the fireman. Even when something like that happens, she's still always positive, and that's good. And it's good morale for the team. Because you're going to have bad days, you're going to have good days, and she's always positive and just looking forward. And she drives the car really hard, and you know that she's getting everything out of it, and then gets out and is super positive. It's just she's just fun to work with. I think from a driving perspective, she's like any other driver. They're pushing hard, and she's really good with feedback. Like most drivers are. But it's just she's always positive.
Great. I'll look and see if we've got another one here. I think I saw maybe one more question come in. Besides aero kits, what other key changes do you make to the cars to run oval tracks versus road courses?
Basically, the suspension is different. Like we run a different suspension on the road course car than we do on the oval car. They're different uprights, which is where the wheel mounts. For the ovals, because we run different cambers. Like the car is tilted because we only make left turns. It's all tilted to one side, so we have to run different left side uprights to make sure that you can get the camber you need and stuff like that. But other than that, it's pretty much the same car. We do stuff in the gearbox to make it freer, to make, because you're flat out all the time. On road courses, you're shifting and going up and down through the gears. So on the oval, you're pretty much in one gear or two gears the whole time. So we do a lot of stuff just to free the car up since you're not doing as much shifting.
I think that got to the second part of the question, which was what are some of the challenges you face going to oval? So I think
it's just a different. You only turn one direction, so you can bias a lot of the stuff to only going left. I think it's more fun as an engineer on an oval because on a road course, you go to tracks that have so many different speed corners, you can't make it right in every corner. So the driver is a much bigger influence. At Indy, most of the corners are roughly the same speed, so you have to get the car much closer, and the driver is not less of a influence, but if the car isn't right, the driver can't carry the car like you can on the road course. So from an engineering standpoint, it's more fun for us.
And then, of course, beyond engineering, well, I guess part of it is engineering, but the decisions you make around when to pit and how many laps to put on a set of tires. So can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yep. The tires degrade over the run. We fuel stints roughly 30 laps, and we'll start off in probably the 222, 223 range, and by the end you're probably 219. So you have to decide, okay, at what point am I going slower than I can if I can put on new tires, even though I'm going to pit sooner, and then we have to make an extra pit stop. Indy, because it's our longest race, 500 miles, we'll probably do 8 pit stops. So you look at, each time you have to look at, man, if anything can go wrong and you lose time, it's multiplied by 8. So it's a lot of determining when the tires are going off and what's the right time to pit, and hopefully a yellow doesn't come out and put you off sequence to everybody else, unless it happens to be the sequence that then wins you the race.
And I'm sure a lot of that information comes from your sensors and your data guys. And,
Oh yeah, like we have a sensor in the fuel cell that we can run the car to 1/10 of a gallon. Because you have to get every bit out of it, and especially if you're close to coming into pit and a yellow comes out, they close the pits and you can't come in. So you have to record all that stuff to the finest detail, and then you can know when to push it because you're doing a calculation, but the engine has a small correction factor, and so we try to figure that out during the race. But then you also have the sensor in the fuel cell that says, okay, now you're less than a gallon. Here's how far you can go.
Yeah, I had heard some other statistics. I know you're not a data guy, just around the pure number of hours they spend after a race or after a practice session, just digging through all of the mountains of data that comes out.
I spend lots of time. Like practice would end at 6 o'clock. We go back, like on each car there's a lead engineer, assistant engineer, and then a data guy. And the lead engineer usually sits with the driver, talks to them, sorts out the problems. By the assistant and the DAG are already starting to pour through the data. And we have 5 cars worth of data. We run lots of reports to compare the cars together, and then you could look at data 24 hours a day the entire time we're at it, and still not look at everything.
I'm just going to go through one last quick look here and see if we've got any other questions. We did have one about where you get one of your cool shirts, but I don't think we've got an answer to that right now.
No, we're trying. We're working on it.
We are starting to really love the orange out there.
Yes.
It stands out.
The car stands out. It looks good.
No. Just make sure we get through here. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we've had come in so far. I think we can wrap it up, but just real quickly before we do that, the last thoughts from you going into this weekend.
I'm excited. We had a good day yesterday at practice. We still have carb day. One more day. We're going to practice pit stops and stuff like that, but I'm pretty excited. She was pretty happy with the car, so we're looking forward. We're starting a little bit farther back than we hoped, but just makes it more fun when she passes all those cars.
Well, great. We can't wait to watch it. So thank you for your time today. What we'll do is we'll keep the question line open.
Okay.
And then if we get additional questions afterwards, I'll make sure they get sent to the team for some answers. Okay. Knowing that we may be a little delayed, they're a little busy this week. So again, thank you for your time. I know it's probably your craziest week. We appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.